Hey, what's up guys? Jailer20 again. Today we're going to be reviewing Borderlands. This is my out of the theater review. Give or take 30 minutes, purely just because I walked to a little park, so I wouldn't be interrupting anybody. So Borderlands, I guess I should start this with the preface that I have never played a Borderlands game before. I know they're kind of popular, or at least they kind of were like 10 years ago. That's another thing we'll be touching on later, but yeah, I never played them. I do know about Handsome Jack, Claptrap, No Rest for the Wicked, Short Change Hero, both are banger tracks. But yeah, so I guess in a weird way, I'm kind of the target audience for this movie. You know, late teens, early 20s, potential fans of what Borderlands would be, right? One problem with that, as I was walking out of the theater, I thought to myself, is it worse to have a bad movie, or is it worse to have a boring movie? Because, let me tell you something, I think, unironically, the best way to compare this is with Madam Web, an earlier release from this year. And just a couple reasons why. They're both established off of pretty big IPs. Well, I wouldn't say Borderlands was a pretty big IP like a decade ago, but point is, big IPs, Sony kind of cut them to bits. They're not being received very well, or at least Borderlands isn't. Well, yeah, of course, Madam Web wasn't either. Either way, I'm going to use them as kind of a comparison, stepping stone kind of thing. Which is to start off with, Madam Web, it was funny bad, right? What's that one line? Never mind, but it was a funny bad movie, right? There was that silly scene with the girls dancing to Toxic. There was the fact that the villain was having ADR during the entire film. I don't know if there's a disease called ADR. I mean, like, you know, dubbing in post. Either way, you know, it was a funny bad kind of film. Borderlands, this is boring bad. I was just sitting there, right, in the theater, thinking, or actually no, not even thinking. I was almost half asleep during the entire movie. I legit had to get out like 30% into the movie, get a Slurpee or Icy, or however you want to call it, and then go back into the movie. I was almost falling asleep. And I've only fallen asleep at like 3, maybe 4 movies, and they're all boring as, or, well, I'm past the first minute. They were all boring as fuck, right? The acting. For some of the actors that were in this movie, I can't believe they had roles like this. Like, I suppose maybe you could defend Ariana Greenblatt, or what's her last name? Ariana, the child, the one who played Tiny Tina, right? I suppose you could defend that with the fact that she was in Barbie, what, 2 years later? Well, we'll touch on that again later, as I mentioned. Jamie Lee Curtis, I didn't know she could pull out a performance that bad, right? And again, no insult to the actors, no insult to the producers or the small creatives, like, you know, building the set or whatever. But geez, some of these performances, some of the okay, I guess we should touch on this right now. Borderlands is kind of meant to be a sort of funny gory game, right? The violence is so out there, so comical, that you're supposed to be like, oh, haha, this is so messed up, haha, right? So that's more than likely why, when it first was revealed it was going to be a rated R film directed by Eli Roth, who, if you don't know, directed Thanksgiving, Hostel, you know, movies with a lot of gore. Only Thanksgiving really treated it comically, but still, movies with a lot of gore, right? But about, what was it? Well, they already had the movie filmed by the time he was replaced. So he was replaced by, I don't even know, did they mention the director yet? Either way, it was made PG-13, and you could really kind of tell that because, or well, I could start telling that by like maybe 1, 2, 3 scenes in, when the main character, Lilith, played by, what's her name? But the main character, she headshots someone, right, with a sniper rifle. And no blood comes out. They just kind of flop over like they were an Overwatch character. There's no oomph, no power to it, no blood. It just, it just looks silly, and not in the fun kind of silly way, in the Jesus, what are we doing here kind of way, right? Story. I can't believe I'm praising Madame Web here, but at the very least, Madame Web had somewhat of a comprehensible story, right? Oh, hey, this rich guy's going to kill these free girls so they don't become spider people. We have to save them. What was going on in Borderlands? Legit, I got out. I don't even... What was the purpose of the vault again? Like, it was holding all the gods' powers or whatever. I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end, but they mentioned it at the beginning. They don't really have a real great description of it, which I kind of allowed just because, you know, oh, hey, they'll probably explain it later. No, they did not. They just had a scene in the vault towards the end of the movie. Something was happening in the vault, and then movie ends. Speaking of which, with the PG-13 switch, this kind of went from less of a action Guardians of the Galaxy Suicide Squad type of movie, more to like, in a weird way, one of those YA movies from like the early 2010s. Like, I'm not kidding. If you lined up this ending with like Divergent or The Maze Runner, which from what I understand The Maze Runner is kind of good, it would just look the same. It's practically a YA movie. And of course there's nothing wrong with YA movies. I mean it's PG-13, so yeah, it is a YA movie, but you know, kind of the ones based off YA novels that aren't Hunger Games or Twilight or Harry Potter. You know, the ones that are like, oh yeah, the big diehard fans know about this movie, but nobody else really does. They were kind of just forgotten into the early part of the 2010s. The villain, there isn't really much to say. He shows up for like maybe 3 minutes, which I suppose as a sort of corporal CEO type kind of makes sense, but I don't know, man. I'm not even sure if you guys can hear me now. I'm kind of walking through a little tunnel here. Just give me a sec. Just to adjust the camera. You know what, sure. And as I was kind of walking out, before I got to this little park, I was kind of thinking, with this, with this Uncharted, and Resident Evil twice, I wonder what this Legend of Zelda movie is going to be like. And I know that's kind of an off-topic thing to bring up, but when you really think about it, that's what? Not 3 flops. I think Uncharted did really well. Sadly, I contributed to that. Or, well, I haven't watched Uncharted again. I just know it's pretty inaccurate to the games. But it just kind of makes me think that maybe the Legend of Zelda project coming from both Nintendo and Sony as a movie, live-action movie, I wonder if it's going to be sort of an MCU Spider-Man situation, where it's sort of like, oh yeah, legally this is Sony's movie, except, you know, Nintendo had control over the director, over the producers, over what script they had. You know, kind of like what they did with the Mario movie a year back. I suppose maybe, yeah, Nintendo might have been the one to appoint, what was it, Wes Ball? I know there's Wes Ball, who was like the guy who adapted a bunch of shitty video games, and then there's Wes Ball, who did Maze Runner, which, again, I suppose makes sense. A lot of these movies just seem like YA movies now. But either way, I know this is kind of a shit review. This is my first time kind of doing just an out-of-theater reaction. It's kind of me just rambling. Overall, not a great movie. Not good at all. It's maybe better than Madame Web. Kind of brings up on the question I thought of earlier. Whether it's better to have a boring movie or whether it's worse to have a boring movie or whether it's worse to have a bad movie. If you think it's worse that it's boring, then yeah, then Borderlands is absolutely the worst movie. If you think it's worse that it's bad, then Madame Web. I mean, personally, again, I was almost thrown into a half coma there. So I definitely have to say Borderlands, very much the worst movie. Not better than Madame Web. I can't believe I'm giving Madame Web props. 2 out of 10. Like I said, sorry this review is kind of haphazard. This is me kind of covering the points as I'm walking out of the theater, or again, give or take 30 minutes. With that, I guess I'm going to end the video here. Treat others how you want to be treated. What else was I going to do for the outro? Whatever. Treat others how you want to be treated. You know, leave a better world behind. And I will see you around.